Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Open Series in Denver. I'm Nick Miller alongside Sam Pardee. How you doing, sir?
Pretty well, how are you?
Good. It's always good to see you guys at the Open Series. A couple of pros, big timers coming out.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You got roped into not only Denver, but the Invitational. So
yeah, I got a cheap flight to Denver, got to come hang out with Matt Nass and Luis, and so yeah, having a good time so far.
Drug them all along.
Yeah.
Now we got some of you guys at the Open Series. It's always nice to see you. And you're playing red-green Landfall. You know, we saw this deck do pretty well at the Pro Tour, but didn't see a lot of it after the fact. You know, why are you playing it this weekend?
Well, I think it didn't really catch on as much after the Pro Tour because nobody made top 8 with it, which is tricky because the Pro Tour is split, right?
Sure.
So people didn't do well at the draft, but they went like 8-2 in Constructed. The deck's probably still great. I'm playing it because I said I was going to test a decent amount for this event. I streamed myself Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I played 20 matches with 3 different decks, and I said whichever one I win the most with, I'll play, and I did very well with this deck. So
You remember the numbers?
I think I went 17-3 overall.
That's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
Right. So we've seen, Atarka Red as the lower to the ground kind of version of this deck, and this is kind of the bigger one. So you've got Swiss Spear, Scythe Leopard as your 1-drops along with a Zergo, and then Snapping Gnarlid and Abbot of Carolcleep as your 2-drops along with Den Protector, although that's usually flipping for the most part.
It does both in this deck, because part of the great thing about Den Protector is with its second ability, the lesser known one,
right,
where it doesn't return
evasion.
a card, you just like Titan Strength it, and they probably don't have a 5-power guy. They probably can't block it.
Right. Yeah, so that's one of the upsides to this deck is you can kind of put your pump spells on something that has evasion, whereas
Yeah.
the Atarka Red deck doesn't have that naturally.
Yeah, and going long, it's obviously, you flip it up, you start returning your own Den Protectors, and you're just going off.
Right. Ever since week 1, we saw Brian DeMars playing the Titan Strength, Become Immense, Teamer Battle Rage combo, all of the rage, no pun intended, but you're able to just get like 18 power and then just trample over.
Yep.
You're doing that with your creatures. So why is this deck, better suited for the tournament than something like Atarka Red?
Well, one of the big things it has going for us is you get to play 3 green creatures with Leopard, Gnarlid, and Den Protector, which dodges a lot of the anti-red hate cards. So like Surge of Righteousness doesn't, you can easily just all in on my Scythe Leopard if they have Surge of Righteousness up. The other thing is you get to play more lands, which I say get to, which is sort of a strange thing, but it means you get to play like a better long game with Den Protector, and you get a real sideboard plan with things like Sarkhan and Outpost Siege.
Right, you don't mind hitting your land drops in this deck. In fact, you basically want to, so you can pump up the Gnarlid and the Scythe Leopard. You also have Atarka's Command here, kind of tying the whole room together, giving your beatdown plan a little bit more extra range.
Yeah, it's a little less good in this deck than it is in the Atarka Red deck, because you don't have like Dragon Fodder. But the thing that is sweet about it is you get to put a land into play more often, which is an oft not used mode, but very fun when you get to do it. You feel very smart.
Right. So you mentioned the sideboard. You get to do a little bit more than the Atarka Red decks. Talk about your sideboard playing. You have 3 Outpost Siege, looking to kind of grind out some other matchups.
Yeah, against decks that are just going to be like all removal, I'm sudden or shock your guy, ultimate price your next guy. You really want to board an Outpost Siege and something like Sarkhan that's a little harder to kill, and then you just kill them dead in the long game.
Right. Not really equipped to deal with stuff like Siege. And then Sarkhan, we haven't seen Sarkhan in a little while. Couple copies, floating around the Jeskai Black decks. Here it looks really good.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's like, your opponent is incentivized to use their Crackling Dooms basically as soon as they can, just because free mana is such a big tax.
Yeah.
So they're usually going to want to cast Crackling Doom and hold up like Murderous Cut, and then you just slam a Sarkhan and they're dead.
Yeah. Other cards, you got some Flameweak Phoenix. Again, we saw this in Brian DeMars' kind of sideboard package. Here looks really good. You got a lot of things that can become 4 power, whether a land or a
little
pump spell.
easier to get to 4 power in this deck than in Brian DeMars' deck, I think, with Snapping Gnarlid and Scythe Leopard. If you save a fetch, then play a fetch on your turn, crack them both, that's 4 power. So
One of the hidden modes on some of these landfall creatures, letting you turn on, Ferocious. Of course, you got Fiery Impulse and Rending Volley as your cheap, removal spells dealing with Jace, and then I assume Goblins with Arc Lightning.
Mantis Rider has to die also. Because part of the thing is when you want to play a grindy game, you need removal so you don't just die to their creatures. So you actually have to be interacting with them more than just playing your own guys.
So is there a scenario where you're kind of doing the siege and the removal where you kind of try to do that game plan?
That's the usual plan against Jeskai.
Okay. Then lastly, Yasova Dragonclaw. Can't forget about this one. Just kind of more long game stuff, or does it have specific targets like the kind of the
Well, it's really
Eldrazi
spicy,
decks?
for one.
Okay.
That's first off. I don't know if it's actually great. It's good against decks that don't have a lot of removal but are trying to beat you with a lot of creatures. It's specifically very good against the creature Archangel of Tides, because it's bigger than it, and if you ever steal an Archangel of Tides, they probably can't block.
Yeah.
And that's a huge game. It also is secretly good against a deck like Esper, because they don't have removal that cares about the toughness of your creatures, so it's just a 3-mana, 4-power trample guy against them, which is just fine.
All right. Well, you're 3-0 so far with it. The deck always looked good. It looks good again. Is there a reason you think maybe, you mentioned it didn't top 8. Is there a reason kind of people aren't gravitating toward this deck? They seem to all be sliding toward a Tarka Red.
Yeah, I think it's that it didn't top 8. It has a little bit more unintuitive, the way you build your sideboard and the way you sideboard is a little different. I don't know if it's necessarily unintuitive, but it's a little trickier maybe than a Tarka Red, so that might be the reason.
Well, you put in some testing, you off to some good results there. You're 3-0 here so far at the Open, so looking pretty good.
Yeah, feeling pretty good.
All right, Sam, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard.
Thank you.
Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Denver.